fresh records for both the S&P and the NASDAQ on a closing basis. So what exactly did Jerome Powell have to say? Because stocks appear like they are quite happy. We faced a key test on our uptrend and we bounced. The same thing happened here on the NASDAQ. What do we note? We came down to the uptrend and we passed. So Jerome Powell he talked for a while today, but basically he said, all right, guys, hold my beer. Time to go up. That's what I heard. So if we look at the headline here, it says that Powell welcomes recent data, but Fed needs more confidence to cut. Hey, this is perfect because we know that a pause is bullish. We're not sure about a cut. If we look here now to the title of today's video, on the weekend, we had a 57% chance of a cut here, and now we're at 63. So the 69% comes from 63 plus 5, which means that there's now a 69% chance we're going to get at least one cut in September. It's likely going to be one, but we have to add both numbers together to get the true number. So if the market now wants to go up, it looks like Jerome Powell finished the job. I heard a guy who sounded confident today. Easy to say yes to the questions he wanted, easy to say no to the questions he wanted. What does that mean? I think he pulled off the impossible or a soft landing. This is probably the closest we're going to get to Jerome Powell smiling. As I joked about a bit on the weekend, this guy's a little bit humble. And we note that this was one important data point for the week, but it was not the only one. Tomorrow, we get ADP non-farm payroll. The market closes at 1 p.m., and then we get the FOMC meeting minutes after the market's closed. And if we get the numbers, as I suspect on Friday, notably for average hourly earnings and unemployment, non-farm payroll, I think Jerome Powell's going to get more evidence that he's correct. So let's go back here and read the title, because he says he welcomes the recent data, but Fed needs more confidence to cut. Hey, that's perfectly fine. Latest prices show signs of U.S. backing off disinflationary path. Well, this is where the market's likely going to reprice fairly quickly if we have roughly 100,000 jobs less added than the previous month, average hourly earnings go down, and unemployment stays at 4. This is literally a perfect storm. And we know that going back to 1928, or roughly 100 years, the first 15 days of July have been the best 2-week trading period for the entire year for equities. Whoop! So where are we? Man, we're off to a pretty good start. 1% for the NASDAQ. We look over here to the S&P. Actually, we're up by more. We were open yesterday, so we're up by about 1% on the S&P and about 1.6% on the NASDAQ. But here's the interesting part. We're actually seeing participation from other ETFs. We note that RSP is actually trying to bounce today. So is rotation actually happening? Well, we'll come back and look at some charts a little bit later in the show, but let's just get through the rest of the data here, right? Thanks, guys. Hold my beer, right? We're going to be going to the moon. And this is perfect because the market's already overbought. And if we're really going to get a sell-off on July 17th, there is a specific number I'm looking at on the S&P, which I'll walk you through right now. It's 5,600. Why? It's a mathematical number. It's the 161 extension off the S&P. Specifically, it's at 5638. So what this basically means is that now we've hit my assumption, and I think we can do it in the month of July. So if we hit that number, I would expect there to be at least some selling, trimming. Why? Because that's how math works. So if we make it to my number by July 17th, before, after, whatever, close enough, I'll be paying attention. And remember, we talked about only one thing that matters on the S&P chart, which again, we'll come back and look at in a moment. But first, the S&P 500 has formed more records in the first half of 2024 and was only exceeded one time in the past century. So look, once in 100 years. We look at the stat here. Once in 100 years. Whoa, this is like something that like never happens. Exactly, which is why I think Jerome Powell seemed a little bit happy today, right? A little bit, he was humble, but hey, he seemed like a happy guy to me, and I can understand the reason why. So if this is like the best in like 100 years, what else does history tell us when we start doing this? Well, if we have a look here, S&P higher than 10% by year to date, well, the odds are pretty good. It's 82% for the rest of the year. Average return is 7.7. Median is basically 10. Whoa. Then if we look at more than 20 all-time highs in the first half of the year, which is what I just showed you, right? This is actually the best going back once in a century. Whoa. So what do we see? Same thing. 80% hit ratio, 100% for the full year. We don't go down on red on the year. And the gains are pretty good. On average, it's 6. The median is 10 for the rest of the year. Whoa, that would be like it's 1995. Like we can go up maybe a lot more. And Tesla's quite happy today. If we look at the heat map, the stock is able to bring the juice, right? Bring the heat. And that's good because we note that NVIDIA's a little bit down, but Tesla's like pretty happy here. And Elon seems pretty excited on X or on Twitter talking about the full self-driving, which I think is going to be a big deal when that is revealed on August 8th. So I'll just show you that one chart really fast here, which was the S&P. But first, I'm going to ask you for a huge favor. If you could please consider smashing that thumbs up or subscribing to the channel, I would greatly, greatly appreciate that. Thank you ahead of time. So to make this really simple, we talked about the S&P. And again, I'm assuming here that we're going to form a monthly higher high. We're now within, all right, we're within about 2 points. If we go above 551, monthly breakout. If we remain over 551, which basically means that we go up for the first 2 weeks of the year, and maybe we don't go down on July 17th. Maybe we do. But here's where the warning will come in. We go over 551 and then fall back below. That would be a failed breakout. That's all I want to see. We had one happen over here. That was the top. So let these bears cry and keep whining because that's frankly all they're doing right now. They have no evidence. If you want a top tick, that's what we're looking for. There's two other really quick charts I want to show you before we go back to round out the story. So if we look here to RSP, the reason why this is so important, like I noted yesterday, is that we've come down for basically a double bottom. I think it's a 5-cent higher low, 5 cents. That's it. That's all we got for cushion here. It's not very much. So after we form, this is the third inside bar, which means we're getting really tight consolidation like a coil. It's either going to shoot down or it's going to shoot up. Hey, if we shoot down, these mega caps are going to have to do even more work to prop up the market. If this thing can finally get a little bit of relief, even if it's not as green as the S&P, it's green. Like 0.5% is pretty good. The S&P is up by roughly 2/3 of 1%. But hey, I'll take it because now that we're so close to support, we cannot afford to mess around. And then if we go here to NVIDIA, looking at the 1-week chart, we talked about how we're looking for two things. The first thing is we want to see whether or not we get a hollow candle by the close of the week, which means on Friday. And I just showed you what I think that means. Let me see if I can pull it up again here. Why? Well, tomorrow, after the market closes, we get the Fed meeting minutes. I'm not sure what they're going to say, but Jerome Powell pretty much paved the way for bullishness, in my opinion. Then we're closed. Then before the open on Friday, we got non-farm payroll, average hourly earnings, and that unemployment rate, which means that between tomorrow at 1 o'clock when we close, man, that's it. There's going to be a lot of data. We're going to wake up on Friday and see, we're either going to see a chart that is hollow, right, which means an expansion like we got last week, which pretty much means we can resume the move higher. And I think it might be a little bit difficult to go to infinity and beyond, or the best 2-week trading period for the whole year, if the leader's not participating. So we have a weekly higher low, and we'd have to get back above roughly 124 or green in the week to actually get that hollow weekly candle. And then also, if we note here, we have a hollow candle 2 in a row for the daily chart here, and we have a failed breakdown. So basically, if we can go sideways, we will break this downtrend, which means that we're still going up, right? We're losing friction, which means maybe we're going to get a little bit of mean reversion. And this is definitely the strongest stock. Last thing I'll note here is that as we see consolidation in price or decreasing price, we also see decreasing volume. That is classic bullish. Why? Man, everyone's rushing in when we get into the stock and everyone's like, oh my God, it's going down. Who cares? Check out, come back and look at it later. That's really bullish. I hope you understand the story I'm laying out here now. All right. And if we look at fear and greed, we're only at neutral. So if we buy fear, sell greed, what do? We probably want to wait for confirmation or that monthly higher high, like I pointed out on the S&P. So to make it really simple, like I just talked about, the first half of July should be really good. This is what I'm looking for data to validate my thesis, and notably that monthly higher high. But then into the second half of the month, I'm not sure what's going to happen here. Tesla gave us a really good indication that, hey, deliveries look good. Tesla is usually one of the first to report with Netflix, so maybe they surprise. Maybe people remember that Tesla is a good company. It's a magnificent stock. And what's most important here is like, man, the stock looks like pretty excited. I hope you guys remember that I've been talking about the stock for a while. Volume precedes price. We finally got a breakout, right? Nike swoosh. And we note that we're now battling for weekly averages. We have a huge push off. Last month, we had a bullish engulfing monthly candle, double hollow. Probably recognize the pattern by now. And we're actually over that 50 monthly moving average. Incredibly bullish. So with that said, click the video on the left if you want to see more. If not, subscribe on the right. Hang out with me at 9:15 a.m. tomorrow. Thanks so much.